A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining us for this special media briefing on the occasion of the state visit of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, who has just concluded her conversation at Hyderabad House with Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. To give us a sense of the conversation as well as the visit, we have the privilege of having with us Shri Vinay Kwatra, Foreign Secretary. Also joining us, Shri Vikram Doraiswamy, our High Commissioner to Bangladesh, as well as Ms. Smita Pant, Joint Secretary looking after BM Division in the Ministry. I would request, Sir, Foreign Secretary, Sir, to perhaps give us a sense of conversations as well as what the outcomes, and then we'll take a few questions. So,
thank you very much, Arindam. High Commissioner Vikram, Joint Secretary Smita, friends from the media, thank you very much for coming this afternoon for this special briefing on the ongoing visit of the Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh to India. At the invitation of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is on a state visit to India, which started yesterday and it concludes on 8th of September. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's visit is part of our ongoing sustained high-level political engagement between the two countries. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi had visited Dhaka in March last year to join the celebrations of the Golden Jubilee of the independence of Bangladesh, the birth centenary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and 50 years of the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Bangladesh. Last December, the then President of India had paid a state visit to Bangladesh to attend the 50th Vijay Diwas celebrations as the guest of honor. These back-to-back exchanges between our two countries at the highest level underscore the special nature of our relationship and importance that both our countries attach to our growing strategic partnership. This morning, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was accorded a ceremonial reception at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, after which she proceeded to Rajghat to pay her respects to Mahatma Gandhi. Prime Minister Modi received Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina at the Hyderabad House earlier today, where both leaders had extensive discussions spread across tete-a-tete, followed by restricted talks and the delegation-level discussions thereafter. Both Prime Ministers held extensive and productive discussions on the entire range of bilateral issues, including political and security cooperation, energy partnership, water cooperation, trade and economic ties, development partnership, and strengthening of people-to-people ties. They also exchanged views and perspectives on regional and global issues. There was a strong agreement between the two leaders on the significance of further strengthening bilateral and sub-regional cooperation to sustain prosperity in these challenging times. Both leaders unveiled and inaugurated important development projects, including Unit 1 of our joint Maitri power plant and Rupsha Bridge, and witnessed the exchange of 7 MOUs in the areas of water resources, capacity building, railways, science and technology, and media. This was followed by a special gesture by our Prime Minister of hosting Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for one-on-one lunch at the Hyderabad House. The main issues that came up in discussions between the two leaders, I would like to just highlight some of them. First, both leaders underscored the importance of continuing our close security cooperation in the fields of counterterrorism, border management, and addressing cross-border crimes. 2, they agreed to further enhance our development partnership, including upgradation of railway infrastructure projects in Bangladesh. Bangladesh, as we all know, is one of India's most important development partners, both in terms of value and concessionality of terms and the range of cooperation in the entire spectrum of development partnership. 3. Both leaders agreed to build resilient supply chains between both countries and across the region. India is the largest market for Bangladeshi products in Asia, and despite the pandemic, bilateral trade has reached all-time high of $18 billion in the last financial year. To sustain this momentum, both leaders have directed the concerned ministries to commence negotiations on a bilateral comprehensive economic partnership agreement, CEPA, this year in 2022 and complete it in time for Bangladesh's final graduation from the LDC status. As part of their vision of a better connected region, the two leaders also shared perspectives on further strengthening cooperation in road, rail, inland waterways, and coastal connectivity. The recent trial runs of a multimodal freight through Chattogram and Mangla ports to India's northeastern region have been encouraging. We look forward to their early completion and early operationalization of this route. The two leaders welcomed ongoing discussions on establishing cross-border interconnections to help both India and Bangladesh meet their energy needs. They also reviewed progress on India-Bangladesh Friendship Pipeline, a project that we are undertaking through grant, which will enable movement of high-speed diesel from India to northern Bangladesh. In this context, we welcome the recent decision of Bangladesh to list Indian Oil Corporation Limited as a registered government-to-government supplier of refined petroleum products, which will of course further help boosting cooperation between our two countries in the energy sector. Sixth, the two leaders welcome the signing of an interim water sharing arrangement for the Kushiara River that will bring benefits to the people of southern Assam and Sylhet division in Bangladesh. I would like to point out here that this will be the first bilateral water sharing arrangement between our two countries since the Ganges Treaty in 1996. It was decided that both sides will continue to work expeditiously to address common challenges such as flood management, river pollution, etc. Seventh, they agreed to further strengthen people-to-people links by focusing on youth exchanges between our two countries. In this context, India eagerly awaits receiving a 100-member youth delegation from Bangladesh scheduled to visit later in October, and also a startup delegation in this year. And lastly, they, as I said, shared perspective on regional and global issues, including on multilateral cooperation. The discussions between the two leaders reaffirmed our common understanding on the path forward in different areas of bilateral partnership. Today, later in the evening, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina will call on Honorable Rashtrapati Ji and Honorable Uprashtrapati Ji. Tomorrow on September 7, she is due to interact with business leaders from both the countries. Minister for Development of Northeastern Region, Shri G. Kishan Reddy, will also participate in this business event. Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's program tomorrow also includes an event to confer scholarships to the descendants of Indian Armed Forces personnel martyred and critically injured during the Liberation War of Bangladesh in 1971. We deeply appreciate this gesture. On 8th September, Prime Minister of Bangladesh will pay a visit to the Dargah of Hazrat Moinuddin Chishti in Ajmer, following which the Bangladesh delegation is scheduled to depart from Jaipur. I would end here, and if there are any questions, would be happy to take them.
Thank you. I think there will be a lot of questions, sir. Please introduce yourself and the organization you represent. Let me start. I saw you first, please. I'm come around.
गुड आफ्टरनून सर सर मैं कविता जोशी हूँ हरिभूमि न्यूज़पेपर से। सर मैं ये जानना चाहती हूँ कि प्राइम मिनिस्टर शेख हसीना और प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी के बीच में जो बायलैटरल टॉक्स हुई हैं, उसमें रोहिंग्या का जो इशू है क्या वो भी आया? भारत की तरफ से क्या प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने इसको रखा और बांग्लादेश के पीएम ने इस पर क्या अपना रिस्पॉन्स दिया है? थैंक यू सर.
Related questions? Okay, we'll take that first.
Smita Sharma. Foreign Secretary, last evening at the interaction with the press, briefly, the Prime Minister said that India is a big country, it can do a lot on the Rohingya issue. One, what really would Dhaka's expectations be at this point in time from India, if you could share with us? And B, given the internal political situation within Myanmar, what is the assessment when it comes to a possible deadline for repatriation in near future? Is there a possibility in sight at all? Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, yes, you had the.
This is Yeshi Seri from the New Indian Express. Are we extending any kind of financial support, like line of credit to Bangladesh for some projects? And also, what is this MOU on media? I'd like a little clarity on that.
MOU on?
Media, he said.
You would have, okay. You would have seen that it was signed by Prasar Bharati, but we'll have more details. I'll come across. Please start. Okay, Neeraj, please start. Then we'll tell.
सर, नीरज हूँ न्यूज 18 इंडिया से. रोहिंग्या के मसले पे भारत की तरफ से, भारतीय प्रधानमंत्री की तरफ से क्या आश्वासन दिया गया शेख हसीना को? और दूसरा सवाल है हमारा कि हिंदू अल्पसंख्यक जो कि बांग्लादेश में हैं, उन पर लगातार हाल के महीनों में हमले होते रहे. इस मसले को भारत की तरफ से उठाया गया और वहाँ की प्रधानमंत्री की तरफ से, यानी बांग्लादेश के प्रधानमंत्री की तरफ से क्या आश्वासन भारत को दिया गया इस मसले पर?
Akhilesh, I'll come. Akhilesh.
Sir, I'm Akhilesh Soman from Sunset Television. Actually, my question is related to defense and security situation between India and Bangladesh. We have learned that China is making a port in Bangladesh. So, was any talk on this issue, the way Sri Lanka was trapped in such type of situation, whether Bangladesh will be again trapped in such type of situation? So, was there any talk on this issue between India?
Specifically trapped. Okay. I think we'll take this round and then we'll come across to you. So, will you take more questions? I think 5. So.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let me, I think, first address the question relating to the MOU on cooperation in broadcasting. I think that was the question. This is essentially an MOU between Prasar Bharati and Bangladesh Television, which was signed in 2019 with a validity of 3 years. And under this, the MOU, it was agreed that Doordarshan will be able to carry Bangladesh TV in the territory of India and DD Dish in the duration of agreement and vice versa. This MOU has been working satisfactorily between the two countries and has been extended for another 3 years. So it's an extension of a pre-existing MOU. कविता जी, जो आपका प्रश्न था रोहिंग्या का, नीरज जी आपके प्रश्न में भी एक रोहिंग्या के इसका जिक्र था, and Smita, you also touched upon different elements of Rohingya issue. देखिए, रोहिंग्या के मुद्दे पे मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि हम सबको भली भांति ज्ञात है और इसकी वैश्विक रूप से सराहना भी हुई है कि जो भूमिका बांग्लादेश ने रोहिंग्या के शरणार्थियों को देने में जो मदद की है, जैसे कि मैंने कहा, वैश्विक समुदाय बांग्लादेश के प्रयासों का पूरी तरह से एक सराहनीय परिप्रेक्ष्य रखता है, उसकी सराहना करता है. हमने भी इस संदर्भ में, जहाँ तक बांग्लादेश में रोहिंग्या की समस्या का प्रश्न है, काफ़ी सहायता की है. इसमें आर्थिक सहायता भी शामिल है और इसमें आगे आने वाले दिनों में यथोचित रूप से जो प्रयास, जो सहायता की आवश्यकता होगी, उसको भी भारत सरकार पूरी तरह से मद्देनज़र में रखेगी. देखिए, इस संदर्भ में ये भी ज्ञात रहना आवश्यक है कि भारत सरकार हर उन प्रयासों का समर्थन करती है जिन प्रयासों के अंतर्गत एक सुरक्षित, स्थिर और शीघ्रतापूर्ण रिटर्न जो डिस्प्लेस्ड लोग हैं म्यांमार के दूसरे देशों में, उनकी वापसी म्यांमार में हो सके. इस संदर्भ में भारत हमेशा एक सकारात्मक भूमिका, एक सकारात्मक रोल और एक सकारात्मक दृष्टिकोण से इस समस्या के समाधान की तरफ अग्रसर रहेगा। नीरज, आपके प्रश्न में एक दूसरा भी प्रश्न था जो कि अल्पसंख्यकों की जो मुद्दा है उसके बारे में। देखिए, इस अल्पसंख्यकों के मुद्दे को लेके भारत और बांग्लादेश सरकार के बीच में लगातार वार्ता होती रही है और बांग्लादेश सरकार ने पब्लिकली भी और प्राइवेट डिस्कशन में भी ये स्पष्ट रूप से कहा है कि वह जहाँ तक अल्पसंख्यकों की सुरक्षा और सेफ्टी का प्रश्न है उसके प्रति पूर्णतया प्रतिबद्ध हैं और कटिबद्ध हैं। ये आश्वासन उन्होंने पब्लिकली और प्राइवेट रूप से, दोनों रूप से हमें वार्ता में दिया है। अखिलेश, your question was on the Chinese activities in Bangladesh. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, that the discussions between the two leaders were very comprehensive, and one of the elements of these discussions included how the two countries have been cooperating and will continue to cooperate on issues of politics and the security. In this context, I think there was a very clear common understanding. This understanding has been there, and it was very clear in the discussions also that the strategic priorities of the relationship of the two countries, interest and concerns of India, and naturally the interest and priorities of Bangladesh is they're all factored in our cooperative matrix of engagement. And I think our relationship stands on its own merits, focuses on its own priorities, looks at our shared concerns, whether they relate to safety issues or security issues. Have I left anything? Yeah. I think Seychelles, your question was on the LOC and projects. The range of development, cooperation, partnership projects that we do with that we do with Bangladesh, and indeed with most of our neighboring countries, is quite extensive. And the total development cooperation envelope, if you want to look at, in case of Bangladesh, the spread is across multiple domains of infrastructure. This includes rail connectivity projects, road projects, building of bridges, etc. And it is serviced through instruments of both lines of credit, but also grant projects. And it runs into tens and thousands of crores. If you have a specific project in mind, we can definitely try and indicate whether it's a line of credit or a grant project. But we do know, and it will probably be there in the joint statement also, that two of the projects that got whose agreements were exchanged today relate to the two LOC projects. Both are in the field of connectivity. So this entire bracket of connectivity has projects which are serviced both through LOC and through the grant projects. So if you have a specific project in mind, we can let you know the specific LOC amount to that.
Hold on, please.
मैं ब्रह्म प्रकाश जी न्यूज़ से। मेरा सवाल रेलवे को लेकर जो एमयू हुआ है उसमें कुछ क्या डिटेल बताएंगे आप? पहले बात चल रही थी कि त्रिपुरा से लेकर बांग्लादेश होते हुए हावड़ा तक भारत रेल ला सकेगा, तो उसको लेकर भी क्या बातचीत हुई है, आगे बढ़ी है? त्रिपुरा से होकर
We'll take quickly.
Avinash from the Association. So there are some reports that Bangladesh is facing some kind of financial crisis due to several factors, and it is also seeking international assistance. So sir, has it approached India also in this regard, formally or informally, and if yes, what has been our response?
Right at the back there was a question. Yeah, you had a question.
Sir, Rishikesh from Sputnik News. So did the discussion entail any reference to bilateral trade in national currencies?
Bilateral trade in national currencies. Sorry. Okay, this side. I'll come back.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Anil Singh from INS. सर बांग्लादेश में एक प्रोपेगेंडा चल रहा है, अपोजिशन बहुत ज़ोर शोर से इस बात को कह रही है कि प्रधानमंत्री एयरपोर्ट पर शेख हसीना को लेने नहीं गए। उसके बाद उन्होंने लोगों ने काफ़ी ये बात को ज़ोर शोर से उठाया और काफ़ी ज़्यादा मीडिया में ने भी उनकी इस बात को उठाया है। सर मेरा दूसरा प्रश्न ये है,
नहीं इसमें प्रश्न क्या था?
सर माय क्वेश्चन इज कि उनकी अपोजिशन ने उठाया कि प्रधानमंत्री उनका मान खत्म हुआ है।
नहीं, आपका स्टेटमेंट है, क्वेश्चन क्या है?
नहीं सर, इट्स माय क्वेश्चन। आपका क्या रिएक्शन है?
हाँ अच्छा, ओके, सॉरी, वो आपने पूछा नहीं तो मैं स्किप। नेक्स्ट।
नहीं सर, माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज
क्विक, दे ऑल गॉट।
दुर्गा पूजा में 2021 में लास्ट टाइम 6 लोग मरे थे और 100 लोग से ज़्यादा लोग घायल हुए थे, और इस बार भी नजदीक में दुर्गा पूजा आने वाली है, तो इस बारे में शेख हसीना जी से क्या बातचीत हुई है भारत सरकार की?
अल्पसंख्यक के बारे में बता दिया था। एनीवे, आई विल नोट योर क्वेश्चन। नेक्स्ट।
Sir, this is Gautam Lahiri. My question is whether any discussion on uninterrupted supply of the essential perishable, particularly perishable commodities, because there are sometimes when the India stop this kind of supply, there is an impact in Bangladesh and it creates mistrust among the people. So whether these issues were raised or any assurance or given.
May I request short questions? I have very tight on time today. One second. Pranay.
फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी जी, प्रधानमंत्री ने अपने संबोधन में काउंटर टेररिज्म और एंटी रेडिकलाइजेशन को लेकर भी जिक्र किया कि भारत और बांग्लादेश सहयोग करेंगे, तो क्या कुछ इस पे सहमति बनी है, और अगर आप बता सकें कि सेपा पे जो डिस्कशंस हैं वो कब तक शुरू हो पाएंगे?
We just have one here and before I take it.
Sir, time's down. Over here. Sir, you've already replied to the question on Pikhua near Cox's Bazar. But there is a $500 million line of credit. And that's been there for a long time. There appears to be very little of no progress on it. Can you tell us if there's been any progress this time? Okay. This is the military line of credit.
Sir, I think a lot of questions, and I think still more interest. We'll come back quickly, sir.
I think the first question was on the railway projects. On the railway projects, there are essentially 2 MOUs which have been signed earlier during the day. One is the MOU on training of Bangladesh railway personnel in India. And the second has been MOU on collaboration in IT systems, such as FIOS or other IT applications for essentially Bangladesh railways. I think the element on which you mentioned, which is relating to railway line from Kolkata to Tripura. Right now, the feasibility, the technical feasibility element of it, I think is under consideration. But there are many aspects related to it which first need to be examined, including there is a requirement for first a broad gauge connectivity to be there in a certain stretch of the railway segment. After which, of course, this could be considered further. With regard to the question on Bangladesh financial crisis, I think the overall aspect of how the regional situation in our regional economic situation in our region is, definitely the views were exchanged between the 2 leaders. But as such, specific aspects of whether there is a crisis in Bangladesh, etc., no, that was not part of the discussion in that sense. But having said that, Prime Minister Modi made it very clear to Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina that India's development cooperation assistance, our economic partnership, our trade and investment engagement is there to serve the very objectives of India-Bangladesh strategic partnership. So we have to keep that frame in mind, not the frame of Bangladesh financial crisis in our mind. Bilateral trade in national currencies. No, specifically this issue did not come up for discussion. but the larger question of that there is a need, that as I mentioned in my opening remarks, the trade is already at all-time high of 18 billion. But the discussions between the two leaders did focus on the fact that this trade basket can be expanded. There is a further headroom for the bilateral trade to grow, both in terms of Indian exports to Bangladesh and, of course, Bangladesh exports also to India. But whether that trade is denominated in the Indian currency or which currency, no, that specifically was not part of the discussions. अनिल सिंह जी, जो आपका प्रश्न था कि वहाँ पर प्रतिपक्ष ने क्या जो टिप्पणी की, देखिए बांग्लादेश के प्रतिपक्ष ने क्या टिप्पणी की उस पर मेरी टिप्पणी तो यथोचित नहीं रहेगी शायद, लेकिन मैं आपको ये ज़रूर बताना चाहूँगा, जैसे कि आप सब ने पूरी तरह से देखा भी होगा, बांग्लादेश की माननीय प्रधानमंत्री को भारत यात्रा पे एक स्टेट विज़िट का दर्जा दिया गया है। ये उच्चतम श्रेणी की विज़िट है। उच्चतम श्रेणी का दर्जा जो भी प्रोटोकॉल संदर्भ में दिया जा सकता है वो ये है। उसके अंतर्गत प्रधानमंत्री शेख हसीना का आज सुबह राष्ट्रपति भवन पे भव्य स्वागत, आपने स्वयं, मुझे पूरी अपेक्षा है, देखा होगा। स्टेट विज़िट के अंतर्गत जो भी संपूर्ण प्रोटोकॉल के प्रयोजन होते हैं, प्रावधान होते हैं, वो पूरी तरह से किए जाते हैं और किए गए हैं। उनका प्रतिपक्ष क्या टिप्पणी देता है उसके बारे में मेरा कहना उचित नहीं रहेगा। गौतम जी, जो योर क्वेश्चन वाज ऑन दी uninterrupted supply of essential commodities, especially perishables to Bangladesh. One of the main elements of discussions and one of the main lines of effort on both sides for further cooperation indeed is to build resilient supply chain of all elements of bilateral trade, whether that extends to goods which are non-perishable in nature or goods which are perishable in nature, or commodities, both food commodities and not food commodities. All those elements were part of these discussions, and essentially our perspective, our thinking and our line of effort is that we strengthen these supply chains further, ensure that they remain uninterrupted to the extent possible, and in this respect put in place whatever is required to be put in place by both sides in terms of mechanism, in terms of practices, in terms of infrastructure facilities between the two countries, so that this becomes an important underpinning for a sustained quantums of high trade between the two countries. जो काउंटर टेररिज्म, सॉरी, आई थिंक अंत के दो प्रश्न, एक काउंटर टेररिज्म और रेडिकलाइजेशन को लेके था, डिफेंस एलओसी का प्रश्न था, और एक सेपा पे एक प्रश्न था कि सेपा का कार्यकाल। तो उसमें जैसे कि मैंने अपनी ओपनिंग टिप्पणी में भी कहा, सेपा के ऊपर जो वार्ता है दोनों देशों के बीच में, औपचारिक वार्ता जो है, वो सन 2022 इसी वर्ष में ही इनका प्रारंभ होना प्रस्तावित है, और इनका जो समापन है ये प्रस्तावित है कि जब बांग्लादेश एलडीसी स्टेटस से ग्रेजुएट करेगा चंद वर्षों के बाद, उस ग्रेजुएशन से पहले इस सेपा की वार्ता का समापन हो जाए, ये प्रस्तावित है। ये दोनों देशों के लीडर्स की वार्ता के बाद निर्णय हुआ है, और अब इसके बाद अधिकारीगण जो है इसको आगे लेके चलेंगे। जो आपने काउंटर टेररिज्म और रेडिकलाइजेशन के मुद्दे पे प्रश्न किया, काउंटर टेररिज्म, रेडिकलाइजेशन हमारे पूरे क्षेत्र के लिए, भारत के लिए, बांग्लादेश के लिए, भारत बांग्लादेश संबंधों के लिए एक प्रकार से कहें तो अवरोध है, एक प्रकार से सुरक्षा का एक खतरा है। तो इसको लेके दोनों नेताओं के बीच में व्यापक बातचीत हुई। बातचीत में ये भी प्रश्न सामने आए कि दोनों देश किस प्रकार से काउंटर टेररिज्म के क्षेत्र में अपने सहयोग को, अपने सहकार्य को किस प्रकार से व्यापक रूप से और आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं. On the defense LOC question from our friend here of a $500 million defense LOC which you talked about, I think the first contract under the defense LOC was signed earlier this week. I'm sure you have been following this closely. It was a modest amount, but it is an important first step. And our effort is that through this, again, it may be defense LOC, but it's also a part of development partnership framework. It also has a landing under the security and the strategic cooperation. Our effort is that this will open up path for further engagement between the two countries in the field of defense, in the field of security, and take our cooperation further.
Just a few more questions. I think we're running tight. Siddhant, I know a lot of hands, but today we'll have to be tight.
One of the pacts was signed on space cooperation. If any details can be given on that.
Space. There was a question here. Yeah, go ahead.
सर मधुरेंद्र, मैं न्यूज़ नेशन से मेरा सवाल लगातार बांग्लादेश में जो चीन का बढ़ता हुआ निवेश है उसी को लेकर है. जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं उसमें तो चीन निवेश कर ही रहा है, उसके साथ ये देखा जा रहा है कि बांग्लादेश की नेवी में भी चीन का निवेश जो है वो भारत के लिए चिंताओं का कारण बनता जा रहा है. खासतौर पे बंगाल की खाड़ी की तरफ से जो असुरक्षा की स्थिति पैदा हो रही है चीन के इस निवेश को लेकर, क्या इस पर कोई बातचीत हुई और इस बात के क्या आसार?
छोटा रखें क्वेश्चन, टाइम बहुत. Yeah, you had to query that back. Yeah, fast.
Seema Guha from Outlook magazine. Just wanted to find out, was there any talk about buying oil from India? Because I saw some reports in the Bangladeshi press. Was that asked?
Yeah, and if somebody else has a question, yeah, this side. Yeah, please go ahead.
सर, मैं जयप्रकाश हूँ दैनिक जागरण से. क्या बांग्लादेश ने गेहूं भारत से खरीदने के लिए प्रस्ताव रखा है?
Next to you.
Sandhya Vaditi, quickly want to check if Bangladesh has accepted India's request around UPI and were there any talks around 5G, offering 5G to Bangladesh?
UPI and FUGE and both 5G and 4G. Okay. There was another.
What was the second element?
5G. 5G. There was one more question. I'll just come back this side. Yeah. Anybody else this side? At the back? One second. Somebody at the back.
So this is in context of border management. Did Bangladesh raise the issue of border killings? And also in that context, India has always said that the border killings which have happened recently, in recent years, are largely due to criminal elements. So is India happy with the kind of cooperation that Bangladesh is giving on combating cross-border crime?
Okay, last couple of questions. I think I've just seen one here. Yeah, please. And then I just take one more. You?
So this is Shoma Bandyopadhyay. I just want to know whether this Akhawura and Agartala rail line, which is still in conflict, was discussed and how soon it can be commissioned. Thank you.
Okay, here. You're sleeping, not getting it. Okay, but just two of you, that's it. Yeah, where's the microphone here?
Hi, this is Nirmala from the Straits Times.
You didn't get the venue. Go ahead, Nirmala.
So just want to ask about the nuclear energy cooperation. What kind of cooperation are the two countries discussing?
Nuclear energy.
From ThePrint on this border management question also, any update on the smart fencing and other measures that were agreed upon earlier? Thanks.
Okay, last question. Yeah, right at the back.
Shubha Jyoti from BBC World News. I mean, India and Bangladesh are jointly making a movie on that's a biopic of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangabandhu. So it's already much delayed. Any idea, any time frame when it's expected to get released?
Okay, thank you.
Spokesperson.
Sorry, so there's a large list of questions. I think there's a lot of interest in the mission.
The questions were coming faster than I could note them down. So I'm sorry if I miss out on some. Do raise your hand and just remind me of them. I think जो आपका space, I think the question on space cooperation. Just pick up that paper. I think it's this one. Yeah. This is essentially a MOU in the area of space technology. It's an MOU between the New Space India Limited. It is a public sector undertaking under the Department of Space, and the Bangladesh Satellite Company Limited, essentially aimed at and intended to strengthen the cooperation between our two countries in the use of space technologies for peaceful purposes. Essentially, space technology, its applications, capacity building, consultancy services in the areas of satellite systems, space technology applications, both for the development purposes and for the governance purposes. Those elements would form the scope of cooperation through this MOU. देखिए, चाइना की बांग्लादेश में उपस्थिति, चाइना द्वारा किए जा रहे विभिन्न प्रोजेक्ट्स, इसके बारे में मैं पहले भी कह चुका हूँ कि दोनों नेताओं के बीच में व्यापक वार्ता का जो संदर्भ था, उसमें सामरिक सुरक्षा, दोनों देशों के सामरिक हित, संबंधों के सामरिक हित, हमारे हित, इंटरेस्ट और कंसर्न, सबको लेके पूरी रूप से व्यापक वार्ता हुई है। और दोनों नेताओं की वार्ता का प्रमुख संदर्भ दोनों देशों के द्विपक्षीय संबंधों पर था, और ये द्विपक्षीय संबंध अपने आप में स्वयं को परिभाषित करते हैं। इनकी परिभाषा किसी तीसरे देश के मद्देनज़र से या तीसरे देश का बांग्लादेश में क्या कार्य स्वरूप है, उसको लेके उससे प्रभावित नहीं होती है। लेकिन हम अपने हितों और सामरिक हितों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए संबंधों में जो भी व्यवस्था, जो भी स्वरूप, जो भी सहयोग सहकार्य उचित होगा, वो दोनों नेताएं उसको मिलके निर्धारित करके ज़रूर काम आगे बढ़ाएंगे। Buying oil from India, I think that was your question, Ms. Seema. The supply of commodities, and I would put oil in that, it is a regular topic of conversation between the two countries and the two systems. And whatever is the essential oil supplies, and I mentioned to you in my opening remarks also that Bangladesh has agreed to designate India Oil Corporation Limited as a G2D supplier for the oil products. So that is very much there on the cards. The discussions have been taking place between the relevant officials. The term sheet of those discussions and the decision, that is something which the officials will work out between them. गेहूं के ऊपर प्रश्न था कि क्या गेहूं के बारे में बांग्लादेश ने कोई प्रस्ताव किया था खरीदने का। देखिए, अभी तक जो है भारत लगभग 4 लाख मीट्रिक टन गेहूं की सप्लाई बांग्लादेश को कर चुका है, और आगे भी जो भी उनके वहाँ से प्रस्ताव आएगा आगे भी गेहूं खरीदने का, उसकी जो भी सप्लाई होगी वो नेचुरली भारत में जो सप्लाई सिचुएशन है गेहूं की, वो और बांग्लादेश की जो ज़रूरतें हैं, वो उन दोनों के मद्देनज़र ही उपयुक्त रूप से यथोचित निर्णय जो है उस पर लिया जाएगा। The question on UPI and 5G. UPI has been under discussions between the two sides and is progressing well. We hope that we can conclude this early going forward. On 5G, there have been no specific discussions between the two sides, but the overall rubric of ICT, cooperation in the field of ICT, has been, of course, under discussions between the two sides, but no specific discussions on 5G as such. Spokesperson is reminding me that we are running out of time because there is another engagement of the Prime Minister for which we all need to rush to. On the border management, I think there were 2 questions which were related. The question of border management, counter-terrorism, safety, security, that entire thing did come up for discussions between the two leaders, and it was emphasized by both leaders that it is absolutely important for the safety and security of societies on both sides, that the criminality, the criminal activities across the border is limited, that the elements and the people who are associated with such criminal activities are apprehended and dealt as per the provisions of the law. And border management is an important element of safety and security cooperation and discussions between the two sides. I think there was a question on nuclear energy which came up. This is essentially an ongoing discussion and cooperation under the tripartite arrangement. It's between India, Bangladesh, and Russia, including on elements relating to safety, nuclear science, and applied nuclear technologies. It's an important area and does involve exchange of technical expertise between the two countries in the areas that is designated for cooperation between our two countries. I think Russia had built the VVER reactor in Ropur, and we have an MOU with Bangladesh on nuclear science cooperation since 2017. So nuclear cooperation in the field of scientific development, etc., is something which has been under discussions between the two sides for some time. You want to respond on the film?
Anything, sir?
So Nakura, Agartala, I think as I mentioned, the connectivity element of our bilateral partnership is one of the strongest elements. And in the connectivity space, the railway connectivity, especially cross-border railway connectivity, is one of the very crucial factors. And it is our effort to ensure that all such cross-border connectivity projects, including especially in the field of railways, are taken forward based on mutual consultations and on terms that work for both sides. But this is something which we definitely prioritize. Film, you want to say something? Why don't you say? You are better just to answer.
We have this film on the Bangabandhu Mujib making of a nation. I think Shyam Benegal and his team are almost completed the film shooting, editing, and see the computer graphics. The final cut is to be shown at the Bangladesh to the Bangladesh Prime Minister at their office before it is formally released. We are hopefully looking at a date towards the end of the year or this year, but we'll let you know once we have a fix on that.